The wide idea is to give a clear picture on how the British came to India, the purpose behind it, and how the British had come with a different agenda but began to gain control and rule India for 300 years. Well, it all began with Vasco da Gama of Portugal. Here he is. He is Vasco da Gama. He discovered the sea route from Europe to India. Let me show you the map. This is the map. Let me draw the sea route for you. Well, it is, you can see that, but it is better that I draw it for you. See, he started from Portugal and then he came down. It is the year 1497 and this is a voyage to India. He went to Africa, he went to Cape of Good Hope, and then he traveled up. Yes, and then he has reached Calicut in Kerala. Yes, now this is the year 1498. Yes, and when did he start? Probably in 1497. So probably it took almost a year to reach this place. Yes, so he must have had a lot of adventure in between. But what did he come here for? Why was he looking at such a small country like India? That is the question. Well, he took back a lot of gold, pearls, spices, silk, and many luxury items and sold for 60 times the cost of his voyage. And then when he became very rich, probably many of those traders, the voyagers, they wanted to come to India, they wanted to explore, they wanted to find out what is there in India that we can take and become rich. So that brought in a lot of greed, and this brought in a lot of greed not only in Portugal but in many places. Let's see which other place had this brought this greed. So Vasco da Gama came to India in 1498. We take it as 1500. Now we jump on to the story to 1600. So 100 years had passed. Many traders, many voyagers had come to India to explore, to find out what they can get from India, because there were a lot of things the Europeans had not seen before, and India was something like a treasure trove. So now this is the beginning of the story when the many trading companies wanted to trade with India. This is how English East India Company was given a royal charter, that is a written grant that you can see there. This was a written grant. It was granted by the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth the First. I had mentioned that the traders came in for a lot of things. India was a treasure trove. So what is that items that were in demand? There was a great demand for Indian spices, for indigo, that was the color that the royals just loved, and the smooth silk and the lovely cotton that grows in our country. It is for this that these people were uh, traveling all the way to India. Read this. It says, in 1615, Mughal Emperor Jahangir allowed English East India Company to set up their first trading post in Surat. Well, the charter was given. Do you remember the Queen had given the charter in the year 1600 and the first trading post was set in 1615. That means to say there was a 15 years gap and the English East India Company was doing their trade for about 15 years, and now it was obvious they were just waiting for an opportunity, and here is the opportunity that they had. It is Emperor Jahangir, not knowing the dangers behind it, giving permission to the English East India Company to set their first trading post in Surat. Now look at this. In 1615, it was Jahangir who had given them the permission to set up their first trading post in Surat. And look at this text. What does it say? It says by 1623, they set up their trading posts in Surat, Bhuj, Ahmedabad, and Agra. Now look at this map. all that which is given in green, that is the Muslim dynasty. You can see Lahore, Delhi, Agra. Now, where is the Surat, Broch, Ahmedabad, and Agra? Now, I will show you that it is this area. Yes, it is this area. So, where they had their uh, trading posts. Now, what is left out, you can see in that map, it is only from here, that here, and many parts here. Yes, this is Bengal. Yes, this place was not, they had not set their foot in. Let's see what happens next, how they are able to conquer those places, how they are able to set their foot into those places. Let's see that. Uh, Remember, the British were not the only ones who had come to plunder India. There were many people who had come. Remember, Vasco da Gama had come in the year 1498, that's 1500. I told you for 100 years, many voyages, many traders had come to India. So many had set their foot in, like French, Dutch, Portuguese. They were all here to loot. And so there was a lot of battles fought between them. And but among them the French were quite strong. You see that it says the Carnatic Wars was with the French East India Company. The French were defeated in that war. Yes, this is a very important one. It's not, this Carnatic Wars is not just one war. There were many wars that was fought between the Britishers and the French. So with the death of the Mughal king Aurangzeb, the Mughal kingdom began to weaken. The British has already spread. I showed you in the map I had shown you earlier, where the Britishers had already spread across the Mughal dynasty. Now, what was left out were a few places uh, like Bengal, Awadh, Mysore. So, what did they do? They waged battles against all these independent rulers, and they became even more stronger. This is a very important part in our lesson. You see, Bengal was a very important province. Bengal came under the Mughal Nawab Siraj ud Dawla. See, he had supported the English East India Company just like any other Mughal ruler who had done, just like how Emperor Jahangir had done. But as a sudden turn of events, he asked the English to leave Calcutta. Now it is called Kolkata, right? So, but they did not like it, and they wanted to teach him a lesson. So they planned it so well that they got a few of Sirajuddaulla's men into their hands, and they turned to be betrayers. And with their help, they had killed Nawab of Bengal, Sirajuddaulla, and that battle that was fought was called the Battle of Plassey, and this happened in 1757. But the Battle of Plassey was just the beginning. The English were more interested in Bengal. It is because Bengal was one of the biggest province. Look at that map. Today what we call as West Bengal, Orissa, Assam, Bihar, and then we have Bangladesh. All this put together was this Bengal. So it was one of the biggest province, and if the British had this under their control, then they would grow to be very, very strong. So you must have understood why Bengal saw two battles. Yes, and it is very important in the history of independence. Yes. Now you see that it is the Nawab of Bengal, uh, Mir Kazim. He is Mir Kazim, and he was not alone this time. Yes, Nawab of Bengal, Mir Kazim, was supported by Nawab of Awadh, Shuja ud Dawla, and Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II. And in 1764, they went for a war with the British, and that was called the Battle of Buxar of 1764. This is a very important battle. However, they had come together to fight against the British, but they were defeated. That is okay, but it is a very, very important war. Now the English grew stronger day by day because they had the biggest province under their control. They had their Mughal dynasty. They had set up their stations everywhere. Yeah, the trading posts everywhere. So now what was left out is small kingdoms. So that's nothing to worry about. So now the kings who were ruling small kingdoms, they were really not ready to fight the English because they knew that they will not win, but they will lose. So they became their allies. Yes, they said, okay, we will listen to whatever you say, just leave us alone. And you see what is given there in the text. It says, powerful East India Company, they made alliance with some kings. Yes, of course, they became the alliance. The rest were forced to sign agreements. You know, to do what? Why did they sign an agreement? They said, okay, now you got to take care of all our expenses, the company's expenses in India. And the king said, yes, we will do that. And then they said, it is not only that, we are going to bring in a lot of our army people and we're going to station them in your province. And you need to feed and take care of the British army stationed in their province. Yes, so the kings were trapped and they had to take care of their own enemies and they had to feed them and clothe them and they had to take care of them, and one day they're going to wage war against them if they go against the British. That was the story. Okay, now that the kings were trapped, they were made to take care of all the expenses the British had in their province. Okay, now what about the government servants? You know, the government servants, when they work very hard, yes, they would like to be given a promotion, right? But here in the Englishman's rule, there was no promotion for an Indian. Yes. Now you can see in that picture, you see that Englishman sitting on the horse, and here there's a man, an Indian who's standing tall. But this man can never become um, a leader. Yes, he's going to remain the same, and the soldiers are going to remain the same. That is because they felt that the Indians were inferior. Yes, they were inferior. They did not deserve any promotion. And be it in the army, the police, or the judiciary, Indians always served at the lower posts. They were not given a promotion. So the educated people who were in the government service were really not very happy about this. It was sad that the kings were trapped, the educated people were not given a promotion, but what about the peasants? They were very poor peasants. Yes. Why? What happened to them? That is very, very, very important because that led to a big revolution in Indian independence. Because they were forced to grow crops required by the British. You know that the British loved the color indigo. They wanted cotton. Yes, they want spice. They want silk. So these peasants were forced to grow crops required only by the British. So they had no say in this. And they would pay them a fixed price, whatever the British thought it was good enough for that. So the farmers never made a profit. They were always under loss. Now, it is not only that. If you own a land, they had to pay a very heavy land tax. Okay, my crops have failed. How will I pay a tax? Yes, there's no such stories here. They were forced to pay heavy tax even when the crops failed. And when there was famine, there was no rain, there were no crops, there's nothing there, there was starvation, there was famine, and many people were dying. The British did not help in times of famine and just let them die. So all this angered the Indians, right from the kings to the educated class to the peasants. So all these put together anger the people, right? So there was a lot of unrest everywhere. There was a lot of revolts here, there, everywhere. Now, here are some prominent people. This is Nana Saheb. Yes, he's the Maratha chief. He's Tantia Tope. He's a loyal soldier of Nana Saheb. Now this is Begum Azrat Mahal, wife of Nawab of Ahmad. We have Rani Lakshmi Bai, the ruler of Jhansi. There are big stories about her. And here is Veer Kanwar Singh. He was a landlord in Bihar, and this is Mangal Pandey. He was a soldier in the British Indian Army. And Mangal Pandey, this is a very important part where, if at all, this revolt of 1857 was fought, it all started with Mangal Pandey, and you have a big story about it, and that I will tell you in another video. But for now, you need to remember it is Nana Saheb, Tantia Tope, Begum Hazrat Mahal, Rani Lakshmi Bai, Veer Kanwar Singh, and Mangal Pandey. They were not the only ones, there were many others, but they were a few prominent ones during this revolt of 1857. But this revolt failed. Let's see why. The revolt shocked the English East India Company. Even though they managed to cut out the fire just at the right time, they knew that they cannot survive another revolt. They knew that they had lost the support of the rulers, the government servants, and the peasants. Now is the time for the direct rule. Now, because of this 1857 revolt, even though they had defeated the Indians, East India Company rule came to an end. Yes, it says the leaders of 1857 revolt were defeated by the British Army. English East India Company rule came to an end. Okay, now it has come to an end. Will that go into the Indians' hand? No, it did not. It came under the direct rule of Queen Victoria, who became the Empress of India. Now that the Queen had taken charge, did she win the hearts of the people? Did the scenario change? Uh, were there many other revolts? Why did the queen give up? And this is a story you would be seeing next. With this, the story comes to an end, and now you'll have to wait for a new beginning.